And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to host this incredible writing team of Tess Gerritsen and Gary Braver, friends since college, both successful writers in their own rights, here to tell us about their brand new book, Collaboration, Choose Me. Gary and Tess, welcome to the show. Tell us about this book.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, I guess I'll start.
You start, Tess, yes.
Okay. The book is about an illicit affair between a married college professor and his student, which is, of course, a no-no. He regrets it immediately, tries to get out of it, and the more he tries to struggle out of this mess, the worse his life becomes, and it becomes a nightmare until the young woman is found dead. Was she murdered? Did he do it? That's the question.
Thank you for that synopsis. You got me hooked. And I cannot wait to get into the details of the story, which it kept me up until 2 a.m. I had to know what happened. It was so good. I was on the edge of my seat. I kept saying to my husband, oh my God, this is so good. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching on Facebook, everyone who's watching on YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you've been here before, you know how this works. And if you're new, we're so happy to have you. Welcome. Here's how it works. Every week, I give you hand-picked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. This is your chance to ask the incredible, internationally best-selling author Tess Gerritsen anything you want about her writing process, her books, her creative process, anything marinating in your brain, and your chance to ask Gary, the only thriller author to have won the Massachusetts Book Award. Wow. Anything that you wonder about his writing. So get those questions going in the comments, and I'll get them right over. Gail is saying hi and sending us hearts. Gail, top community member, great to have you here. I'll kick off by asking, how did you two work together? So there's 3 points of view in the book, and there is 2 timelines. There's before and there is after, and they are both tasty. But so the 3 points of view are Frankie, the detective who's investigating what first seems to be a suicide, but maybe isn't. And then there's Taryn, the young college student. And then there's Jack, her college professor. Gary, are you Jack? Tess, are you Jack? How did this work? Tell us.
It actually was a very organized thing, at least on paper, when we started. We were having cocktails at a party in a bookstore in Boston, and I was following the Me Too movement, and a lot of bad stuff was coming out. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to look at just that kind of a situation, except more of a gray area? Ooh. Every affair has a different point of view, depending on whether you're the man or the woman. What if we told a story from both the male and the female point of view? And what if a male writer wrote the guy's part and a woman wrote the female part? What happens next? So the only thing we agreed on was that the young woman would end up dead, and we didn't know whether it was murder or whether the professor did it. So Gary went home, and a couple weeks later, he sent me a chapter, the first chapter of Professor Jack Dorian. And I thought, okay, now I have to write a chapter. So I started writing Taryn, the college student's point of view, and it just ping pong back and forth. He'd write a chapter, I'd write a chapter, and it got more and more intense because our characters got more and more cruel with each other. So it was kind of fun to see how far each character would take it.
Right. And each chapter that Tess would send would be a challenge for me to move my story along with Jack. And he was in my head all the time. And then when Taryn is in the chapter that Jack is point of view character of, I was doing Taryn as Tess had developed her, so that their interlude sounded consistent with the character that Tess was developing. And it really was. We were in each other's characters' heads. I was in Jack's, she was in Taryn's, she was in Frankie Loomis, the homicide detective. And it went back and forth. And we didn't get until about 2/3 the way through until the editor had an ingenious suggestion. We love the character of Frankie Loomis. We know this is a murder mystery. We know it's going to be Taryn whose body is going to show up in chapter 25. Put it up front. Put up Frankie discovering the body, investigating the death of Taryn in chapter 1. And that is when Tess came up with the before and after segmenting of the novel.
Ooh, oh, I love that. So when that editor said that, was it an immediate yes, or was there discussion about it, or?
That we have to call out our wonderful editor, because that idea, sometimes you just need somebody to light a match under you.
Right, exactly.
And everybody had said they loved Frankie Loomis. And so I couldn't figure out any way to bring her forward, except on an alternate case, which made no sense to the story. So once we decided to move her forward, we realized the murder had to be moved forward, which meant the book was really a before and after intercut between what happened and how did we get here. So we open up with what I like to call the train wreck, and then we pull back and we see how that train got into that wreck. And it was sort of fun to see these little interweaving parts locked together in the final draft.
Right.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was both a whodunit and a why done it. Why the train wreck? Why did she end up in the opening scenes? Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I love that perspective, because that's exactly what it felt like. We open on the train wreck, and we think, how did we get here? And I love what you said, Gary, that as each of you wrote the other person's chapters, you had to respond to where that person, to where your writing partner had taken that character. So because it was very interesting. I loved seeing Taryn in Jack's perspective and seeing Jack in Taryn's perspective, because of course we all think, hey, I'm good. Like, it's your problem. But actually we see that when you see that that character through the other perspective, maybe you're not so good.
It's a question. Wait, are we not the heroes here?
Right. Exactly. So a very, and there is there's a lot of moral complexity. Not so much about Frankie. Frankie, we just love her. But Taryn and Jack, certainly very morally complex people, making terrible choices sometimes.
It's a book about mistakes and how a mistake can destroy your life, and how do you recover after you've done something terrible? How do you atone for those mistakes? And neither Gary nor I wanted to write a completely good character or a completely bad character. We wanted them to be like most human beings. We have shades of gray, and as crazy as Taryn is, I think that most of us probably know a woman like that.
Indeed, we do. I was thinking of all of the women, and sometimes they're not always, sometimes they're not always like that. You have a moment where, where we've all had a friend who's in love, and love makes you do crazy things and you just want to be with that person. And, it was interesting because when, earlier in Taryn's history, before you realize that, she just how crazy she is, when she's going in illegally to her ex-boyfriend Liam's apartment and she's smelling his clothes. I mean, my heart hurts because it's so relatable. We've all had our heart broken. We've all had that loss in various forms. And you do just want to smell whether the person has died or whether the person has just left you. You want to smell their clothes because you want to be close to them again and you yearn to be together. I mean, that was so relatable and so painful and so poignant. I loved that scene.
Yeah, and there's a point where it gets, we all understand that, but there's a point where it goes beyond. I think a lot of people have, when they break up, maybe they've driven past their ex's apartment, they've driven past the house, they just want to know what's going on in their lives. That's not that unusual. But then you start to break into their house and steal their clothes because you want to smell them. Okay. That's
No. I was thinking more like, you have a shirt from someone who has someone who has, like I remember when my grandmother died and I have her furniture, her wedding furniture from 1936, and it still smells like her Estee Lauder. And I still like to, go and smell the drawers that smell like her and open them and remember her white linen by Estee Lauder smell. And I miss my grandmother so much. And so, it's that sense of smell when you've lost someone in whatever form that is, that you want to be close to them again. Taryn, of course, does take a little too much, a little too crazy. All right, let's get down into it. When you were writing the book, did you ever disagree about a direction of the book or a direction of the chapter? And you were like, no, Gary, this is wrong. Or Gary, were you like, Tess, this is just totally out of character?
I think that some of the dialogue that Jack has with his wife, which in moments of intimacy were maybe a little bit too much for the scene as perceived by Tess and maybe even the editors. So some of it ended up on the cutting room floor, or some was just kind of smoothed over. And I understood that. And it wasn't, didn't scar my ego. I thought there's some good lines and some funny jokes, but it may not have fit properly. And the other thing is, and you're a writer too, the rule of thumb is know your audience, know your readership, and you don't want to offend. It's not a trigger warning, but you don't want to offend the readers if something is a little bit kind of over the top, but would have been true in between two intimate people. I mean, so it's, and the other thing is that Tess has written 30 books. This is my 9th. We got to about the 2/3 point and didn't know who the villain was. I mean, we knew who the candidates were, the 1 through A through D. But the point is, who would be the right one to keep them guessing? And it would be logical and emotionally correct given the circumstances, and not pulling a rabbit out of the hat at the end. So we finally said, I think it will be this one. And that worked out. But it was interesting to see two inveterate writers not quite deciding who the villain of their own book was.
And did you disagree about who the villain ultimately should be? Or you both were like, no, it's got to be.
It was the latter. I mean, we did say, how about so-and-so? That's not going to work. And that's not consistent with the character. And that's the rabbit out of the hat at the end. And we finally said, yes, this is the right way to end the book.
There was one who felt emotionally correct. It was one that we could believe in. Maybe it wasn't the most surprising one, because sometimes when you have a surprise villain, it is like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, and that's cheating. But we wanted to be consistent with the characters that we had developed.
Of course.
Interesting. Okay. And what about you, Tess? So when you were writing, did you ever get one of Gary's chapters and thought, dear God, this is just not right? What was he thinking?
Well,
Watch it, Tess.
There were one of the reasons for writing this was I was curious how men would look at a situation that would be different from how women would look at a situation. And I think that one thing that I learned was that men look at women differently than we imagine they look at us.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we think that men love us for our personalities. We think that men love us because we're brilliant and we're smart and we're funny. But when you first meet an attractive woman as a man, you're not looking at their personality. You're very physical. Everything is much more on a physical level, at least from Professor Dorian's point of view. And I thought, is this the way it really is? And my husband agreed. Gary was right. And so it is something that I think I toned down a little bit in Gary's chapters. I said, can you tone down the physicality here? Because I think our female audience is going to be a little disturbed by this. So I did make some suggestions, and he agreed later on that our audience might not be as happy to know what men really think.
Ooh, interesting.
I still believe, and I asked my spouse, Kathy, but women look at men initially and think in terms of physical terms. He's kind of cute. He's kind of cool. He's kind of hunky. Don't they, Sarah?
I mean, I am blessed with the gift of vision. Yep. So when, for instance, I watch Bridgerton for 8 delicious hours, can I not help but notice that Regé-Jean Page is a gift to a gift to the female viewership? Yes. I mean, I must appreciate the art that is that human man. that flawless, glorious human man. Oh my gosh. Margaret is saying co-authors dishing on each other in the same room, dangerous.
Well, the truth is, though, we started off, being friends. We're still friends, and I think that one of the secrets to being able to do this collaboration is being willing to give a little, really to accept that the other one might have a point, and to be willing to compromise. And I think that that's one thing that we both had. Although he probably hang up the phone or sign off his computer and turn to Kathy and go, "Oh my God, she's horrible."
No, never.
Meanwhile, Kathy and Tess's husband have formed a support group. They're in another room right now, drinking vodka. They're doing a shot every time someone says physicality. I love it. Oh my gosh. Margaret is saying, attention, Reggae Jean Page, international fans, of which I am also one. Margaret, join the club. Okay, we can share him. Going back to what you were saying, Margaret's also adding, don't remind those female readers of the real world. So yes, very interesting to know that the male gaze is so physically oriented, and to see that in Jack Dorian. For those of you who haven't read the book yet, Jack is a professor at Commonwealth College here in Boston, and he cannot help but notice that one of his female students is the equivalent of Reggae Jean Page, who would that be? Gal Gadot, this gorgeous young, woman, and tumbles down the rabbit hole on that. So I'm also interested to learn, Tess, that because I didn't know that about I mean, I'm married to a man and I still don't know what those guys are thinking.
I know it is really difficult sometimes. Sometimes you do feel like you're two different species.
Yeah.
But I just know, as a woman myself, when I meet a man, okay, yeah, he's cute, but I really pay more attention to their eyes and to their personality, I think.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, to be fair to Jack Dorian, once he starts talking to Taryn, he realized she is a very bright and determined a woman who has her eyes on growing up in an academic community, being a college professor, as is Jack. And so that is attractive to a teacher, because you want a student to light up to learning and dedicate her life to teaching and education. So that is really in her corner too. Yeah, she's very attractive, but she's also very smart, very verbal, very talented, and she wants to go places and wants to go places that he approves of. Yeah.
Gary, you're trying to defend Jack. I'm not sure that's a winning position for you. Library Journal raves. With deceitful characters and plenty of twists, this novel is highly recommended for fans of Gerritsen and Braver, and readers who love suspense stories. A rave review from them. They also awarded you a starred rating. Congratulations on that. You must have. How did you celebrate? Did you high five? Did you have cocktails?
We virtually high-fived.
Yay! Yes, because it's amazing when your work is received and understood in the way that, with all of the complexity and all of the hard work that you've poured into it. That's incredible. And Library Journal is not the only one. Mystery and Suspense Magazine raving about the book as well. And so, as all of these, and the Wall Street Journal, I mean, I could go on and on, but Mystery and Suspense Magazine raving an emotionally charged page turner that will definitely keep readers guessing. Choose Me has all the twists and turns in all the right places. Gerritsen and Braver are definitely the co-writing dynamic duo to watch out for. Will you guys be teaming up again? Because I agree, this was tasty. I loved it.
Well, I think that we found out that this was more work than each of us writing our solo books. It is, because, I mean, not only did we have to wait for the other person to do the next chapter, it was a lot of reaction back and forth to what the other person had written. So it did take a while. And I just think it's harder to do a collaboration than it is a solo novel.
Harry, would you agree?
Yes, we also have several other irons in the fire. I've got 2 novels ready to go, and I'm 2/3 through another one. Tess just finished another Rizzoli and Isles. And she's working on a spy book. So they're and she's probably doing movies too.
Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. And this is fascinating to learn, because I think as a solo writer, I always have this fantasy where I think if I had a writing partner, this would be so much easier. And I would just ask my partner, like my twin, oh, can you help me with this? And whenever I feel stuck or frustrated and I just want to scream and, pound my head against the desk or the nearest wall, I always think if I had a writing partner, this would be easier. But you're saying it's not. This is fascinating.
Yes, and I agree with what Tess said. However, there's great relief, because she did the female detective, middle-aged woman, mother of twin teenage girls. I would have had to fake that. I would have probably, I would have made a male with two teenage sons, as I once had. They've grown up now. So I think I probably would not have felt comfortable trying in spending several weeks, months in the head of a female detective. I would not be comfortable in there. The other thing was, and this is the great part of collaboration, particularly on a book like this as opposed to nonfiction. Tess, what do you think we should do next? And we're at a fork in the road.
Right.
You know, do we go down A or B? And that collaboration sometimes really helps. And you know, and that was the same conundrum. Who's going to be the villain at the end? So that kibitzing really helped out, which you don't get on a single author book, you know.
Yeah, the research. I mean, I would never have been able to write those university scenes. So he was writing his world, and that was easy for him because it was second nature. And whenever there was a medical scene or an autopsy scene, that was easy for me. So we didn't have to do any research. Well, we really were able to focus on the characters.
Correct.
And one of the many things I loved about this book was the specificity of the medical examiner scene. I'm an anatomy nerd. I'm a yoga teacher, and my favorite thing about it is anatomy. I love anatomy. I love the human body. I know almost all the muscles by memory. I just love how the human body works. And I haven't yet gotten to go to an autopsy, but I really want to. And so I loved the specificity with which you described the body, with which the vegan ironically cadaverous looking medical examiner was describing the injuries. And I didn't know that they, would go right in there and lift, prosect and then lift out each organ. Why do they do that?
Well, it's easier to see them when they're out of the body. When you can first of all, you have to weigh them. You have to know how much the liver weighs and the lungs weigh, because that tells you something. And if you're going to get sections, for instance, of the lung, it's easier to have it out on a tray and know what part you're cutting out. And certainly with the brain, it helps because before you can start doing sections on the brain, it has to be fixed in some kind of a liquid so that it is harder, and then maybe in a week or so, then you can get the sections of the brain. So that I think is I think most autopsy scenes will show that. But what was specific about this particular autopsy scene was I bring up what they call Pupa's law. Georg Pupa was a pathologist who you could look at a skull, a series of skull fractures, and you could tell based on that pattern which fracture came first. If there were two fractures happening in succession, Pupa's law would tell you. And it became really important to the story.
Yes. And I loved that. Actually, you inspired me to go Google Pupa's law, because I had, of course, not heard of that, not being a medical examiner myself. But I was fascinated because that becomes pivotal, as she has two injuries to the cranium, to the skull. And so, and at first they think she bounced on the sidewalk, but then Pupa's law ends up playing this very important part of the story. I was fascinated by that. So thank you for that. Margaret has a great question. She says, co-authoring is more work than writing solo, like marriage is more work than living alone. True or false? Tess, let's start with you.
True.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think so. I mean, the writing is less work because we're both writing. I mean, we're each writing half a book, but it's the coordination and it's the final edit that makes it a little harder.
Right.
Ooh, okay. Tess, what's your favorite scene in this book? Your favorite scene to write and your favorite scene to read, if they're different.
Oh, well, my favorite scenes actually have to do with Taryn, because, every soap opera actress loves playing the villainess. Well, it's fun. Ooh. It's fun writing a complicated, maybe not quite stable female character as well. My favorite scene is when Taryn goes into the medical office of Jack's wife.
Oh my God, that was so tense.
Yeah, she pretends that she's just a patient there because she wants to scope out the competition. And that little scene in that medical clinic where Jack's wife is clueless. She doesn't know that this girl is having an affair with her husband. And you just kind of wonder, what is she gonna do? Is she going to burst out with the truth, or is she just there to torment Jack, or what is she there for? So that scene was fun to write. That
scene was fun / stressful to read. I think I sweated through my shirt because it was so interesting, right? Because she infiltrates Jack's wife's Dr. doctor's office to get an exam, and she's thinking she's being all clever, but then she gets in there and she's like, oh crap, I got to take off my clothes and wear this stupid Johnny. Like that, Johnny's not flattering to anybody. And then the nurse is like, everything, stripped down to your undies. And it's just so horrifying because she suddenly realizes she's going to have to meet her rival, AKA Jack's wife, in her undies and a Johnny. And it just was cringing, Tess. It was so intense. Oh my God. Okay, Gary, what was your favorite scene to read? And if it's one of Tess's, and what's your favorite scene to write?
My favorite scene is when Jack in the Museum of Fine Arts confesses to his wife that he has had an affair and that he may be the subject of a police investigation for the homicide of his student. And I was sweating that one out. I imagine me going into Kathy and saying, honey, I've been a bad boy, and how she would react. And that scene, the Maggie in that scene is my wife, as I imagine her under the circumstances of me confessing that I have had an affair with a student who's now dead, and the police are looking for me. So that was the most emotional scene, and the one that was most revealing, and the one where he thinks, this is as bad as I've ever gotten, and it's the worst moment I've ever had in my marriage with my wife, and in fact in my life. So it was the high and the high of the lowest scene of the book, and for me, and for poor Jack.
Yeah, that was a very painful, very emotional scene. And one thing about Gary's job in this book was he had a really tough job. He had to make Jack, this flawed man who's made a mistake, he had to make us sympathize with him. Yes, we have a flawed man, and he's our hero. He really is the central character of this story. And so Gary had to find a way to make us like him.
Yeah, actually, and I would say both of you didn't have an easy job, because Gary, you had to make Jack, the philandering, cheating piece of crap, likable. And Tess, you had to make Taryn, boil a bunny, crazy level stalker, someone that we felt compassion and empathy and camaraderie for. We had to root for her getting into that medical office. I mean, we had to cheer for her breaking up a marriage and, being a home wrecking mean person. Words are failing me because I'm getting fired up.
But we had to see, we had to be able to see ourselves, at least in some part of her. We had to be able to see, oh yes, I've been hurt. I've had my heart broken. I have been angry at an ex. I have wanted to get back at an ex. How would I do that? So these are all themes that probably most human beings have lived through. It's just how far will this character take it before you realize, oh, that's too far. She's nuts.
Let me ask you, how did you make characters that could have, if written badly, been unpalatable, villainous people that we hated? How did you make us care about Taryn and empathize with her and remember the loss in our lives? How did you make us care about Jack, who's a philandering heel?
On the Jack part of the question, first of all, we neither of us either totally vilified or totally exonerated our characters, and this is the portraits in gray instead of portraits in black and white. And so I imagine Jack standing in front of the mirror in the morning when he's brushing his teeth saying, he doesn't say that is the face of evil, nor does he say Maggie made me do it, Taryn made me do it. He says, I made me do it. I mean, he realizes he's the adult in the room. He's a 42-year-old college professor. He's a 22-year-old student. He knows he has a moral compass. He just happened to be tempted over into the tipping point in his temptation with Taryn. And then there are more chapters of Jack after that tipping point and his guilt than before. So he suffers that, and he torments himself, and he goes to bed at one point and he says, this is not going to end well. And then it gets even darker and darker and darker. Yeah.
And to make us like Taryn, I think I really had to go back into why she is the way she is. And she's a wounded person. She's been abandoned by her father. She's been abandoned by her recent boyfriend. And I think we can all sympathize with that this young woman has been through a lot of pain. So that is really, I think, the way I was able to get into her and somehow make her, at least, if not likable, at least someone we understand.
And in a sense, my contribution to Taryn's character was introducing a course in star-crossed lovers, where she could find models of strong women, and those who had suffered victimhood. For instance, she reads Virgil's Aeneid, where Queen Dido is rejected by Aeneas, and she commits suicide as he takes off to go found the city of Rome. Whereas Medea, she's married to Jason, whom she helped get the golden fleece. They have 2 children. He takes off with the Queen of Corinth, a princess of Corinth. So what does Medea do? She kills the princess of Corinth and slaughters her own 2 children. And that's over-the-top revenge. And in many ways, Taryn goes for the Medea option as opposed to the Dido option and falling on her dagger.
Yeah, I didn't actually know these stories, these ancient Greek and other stories. So I learned a lot as well. I appreciated the historical specificity of that. And also, I thought what was really interesting was how, Tess, you played with the archetypes of women as passive, as weak, as wounded, as in service to the men, the family, and how using those archetypes, Gary, these ancient archetypes, Gary, that you're talking about, helped her tap into her rage and feel strong, and to decide she wasn't going to be, getting on the funeral pyre, if I'm saying that right, and stabbing herself. She was going to have the flames coming out of her mouth and be Medea. And I thought that was really interesting too. Oh, Emily is saying we recognize ourselves, warts and all, in these characters. Emily, well said. And Gary and Tess, a testament to your writing, to your ability to make us care so deeply about these people. So thank you both for that. And clearly it's resonating. The incredible #1 New York Times bestselling author David Baldacci also loved this book, and he raved. Choose Me is a whirlwind. And I loved his use of the word whirlwind, saying it with sharp, fluid prose and fine depth of character, telling an age-old story with powerful and timely relevancy, told from alternating perspectives. The story is chilly, creepy, nuanced, layered, a puzzler. I mean, this is high praise from an incredible writer. So congratulations on that. Let me ask you both, what do you want readers to walk away from this book having learned, having felt, questions that they're asking, experienced? What do you want us to leave with?
That we pay for our mistakes.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that the Star-Crossed Lovers course has a great irony in the title of that. My falling into your arms was not determined by the gods or fate. I did it because I am weak, because I was tempted and I did something wrong. Yeah. So we pay for our mistakes. Yeah.
Ooh. What about you, Tess?
That every situation is a different story depending on who's seeing it. That point of view is the story. That 2 people can experience identical events and walk away thinking something different happened.
That is interesting, because I mean, you see that even in families, right? I mean, my sisters and I remember things so differently, and the fallibility of memory colored by our own experience, our own desires, our own wishes and hopes. I mean, that's a fascinating perspective. So thank you for that. I think the other thing that was really fascinating to me about this book was how vulnerable we all are, and how our happiness and our current whatever we have is held together actually pretty only fragilely. Whether Taryn being, and I loved also how Taryn was coming out of Hobart, Maine, as a townie, and the difference between the summer people and the year rounders, and the doctor's son versus the the night shift nursing home, woman's daughter, and the differences of socioeconomic background how that made them come forward in very different ways into the world in terms of expectations, and their expectations of self and others. I loved how you brought that up as well. I mean, because that was so powerful. Was that important to you, or did that just come to you, Tess?
Well, I live in Maine, and we're very aware of socioeconomic differences here. You go out to the islands, and you have the people who own these giant so-called summer cottages. Mm-hmm. I mean, they call them summer cottages, but they're mansions. Yes. Then you have the local people who are there as the caretakers. They take care of them, and there are wide differences in socioeconomic status here, and that was something that defined Taryn. Is she always wanted to work for something better. She wanted to better herself, and she was a very, very intelligent young woman who realized, growing up in the town that she lived in, that she was on the wrong side of the tracks. So in that way, I mean, I wanted to admire her get up and go, because this woman she's not going to lie down and surrender. She is going to work. She's going to fight for what she wants.
I love that. And as a girl who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks and was the first member of her family to go to college, I think I really loved that about Taryn, and I so identified with that about Taryn. I was like, I see you, girl. I get you. I know what that's like. And to be, at the college and know that you're, not like everybody else, and you're sort of lucky to be there and scrambling. I worked my way through college, scrambling to make that happen. It's hard. And so her grit, her determination, her desire to pull herself up by her bootstraps. I loved that about her. And I was cheering for her even when she was acting crazy. I was like, no, Taryn, please. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been incredible. I want to open the floor up. Parting thoughts, anything you wished that I had asked, anything that you would have liked to share, please. I want to offer this stage to you.
Well, do we dare do the sensitivity thing about trigger warnings? Because we talk about trigger warnings.
I want to. We're getting hearts up. We're getting hearts up from Facebook. Okay, so there's this powerful scene in the book, you guys, where Gary gets called in, actually unfairly, before he's ever done anything wrong, ironically, to the Office of Sensitivity for a Title IX, which I didn't know what that was, where he has been wrongfully, ironically, alleged to have been sexually inappropriate to these other two students who aren't even Taryn, because they're mad about their grades. They don't like him. And the woman who's in charge of investigating Gary says that he should consider offering a trigger warning on teaching the star-crossed lovers material. He refuses staunchly. He says proudly that he's not going to do that because college is about making you question things and pushing those boundaries. Gary, walk us through that. Why did you want to do that? Should there be trigger warnings on material like this ancient material of, older men having sexual relationships with their younger students in ancient Greece?
Right. Actually, it was Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl they're talking about in class. Yes. And Jack it's all about character motivation. That's one of the things we do when we're teaching novels. And it came up that the character of Nick Dunn is married to Amy Dunn. There are great fracture lines in their marriage. They're not intimate anymore. He's got this student who's making moon eyes at him in class, making know that she is available. And that he says, you could understand how the character of Nick would take up with a student of his who is available, since his marriage is not doing very well at home. Mm-hmm. So he is called on the carpet for advocating teachers having affairs with their students. That actually happened. And so he's called into the Title IX office. The Title IX office essentially is the Board of Education, has regulations regarding sexual relationship between teachers and students. Mm-hmm. And if such a thing can't do that, you'll be fired. It terminated if you are a professor and you have grade authority over your students. That's favoritism. and unfair to the other students, and you will be terminated. So Jack is faced with a potential termination by this complaint, which absolutely has no water at all. It's absolutely a silly thing. He's talking about fictional character having a fictional affair in a piece of fiction. So he's not advocating relationships. And so when Jack says, at the suggestion of the Title IX woman, would you put trigger warnings on your books? I said, no. These are 22-year-old kids. They read the headlines of the Boston Globe. They know horrors of the world. I mean, this is ridiculous. And my own courses, I wouldn't put trigger warnings on my courses. I would teach a course on horror fiction. I mean, if you don't want to read Dracula or Pet Sematary or Shirley Jackson, go on Amazon and read the synopsis of them. If it's something's going to offend you, you don't want, worry about dead cats coming back as zombies. Don't take the course.
Yeah, this isn't the one for you.
Exactly.
Tess, what are your thoughts?
Well, I grew up in an era when there was no such thing as trigger warnings. You went to college, you read history, you read about millions and millions of people getting killed in World War II and Nazi Germany. And what are you going to do? Trigger warning. This is history.
Right. So
I understand that it's really tough to be a professor to try and teach a course, and you have no idea what people are going to be sensitive about. I mean, I don't know how you could teach a horror fiction course. And how are you going to find all the triggers in that course?
Exactly.
People die. Yeah, there's blood. There's this. There's that. I mean, you might as well just have the kids just walk around with earmuffs on.
Right, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because then at the same time they're watching Game of Thrones, which is extraordinarily violent and and full of incest, sexual violence, physical violence, every kind of horror and violence. Oh my gosh. Sharon is saying this sounds like another great book that she wants to read. Absolutely. Sharon, I am telling you, I devoured it in a day and a half. This was my weekend reading. I curled up with my little puppy at my 10-year-old puppy. She's still a puppy to me. And I devoured it. It's so great. So you will love this. And actually, I want to remind everyone that you can buy it today through Murder by the Book and support this amazing independent bookstore, one of the oldest and most respected bookstores in the country, you guys. And independent bookstores need our dollars because tragically one per week has gone out of business since the pandemic descended. So if you want to have bookstores to browse and aisles to browse and books to smell, clearly I just love going around smelling things. But I do love smelling books. I love to stick my nose in their pages and breathe in. If you want to have that to browse, you gotta vote with your dollars. So support this amazing bookstore, one of 3 independent dedicated mystery bookstores in the world, my favorite, and get a copy of this book and then come back and tell us what you think. Gary, Tess, and I will be wondering. So I just put the link in the comments. Grab it right now. Carol is saying she's stopping in, saying hi to the authors, giving myself a hug. Here I am hugging myself. I think we all should hug ourselves. Great to have you, Carol. Thank you. And grab this book because you guys, I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, well, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Thank you for sharing what it's like to write as a team, what the real scoop was on whether it's more work, whether it's easier, how you worked, how you grew your characters together. So this was absolutely fascinating, and we can't wait to have you back when each of your next books comes out, separately or together.
Well, thank you. We'll be looking forward to seeing you again.
Yay. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.